Welcome back to the All-in-One Certification video series. I'm Mike Redmond, Master Trainer, here to guide you through your successful journey of becoming a Security Plus certified professional. We're going to walk through a variety of subjects like access control and encryption, all the way down to network security and hardening the OSs. I'll describe some of the challenges of securing information, define information security, and explain why it's important, identify the types of attackers and what the common attacks of today are, list some basic steps to an attack, and describe the 5 basic principles of defense. When it comes to securing information in the 21st century, there really is no one-size-fits-all solution. It's a series of layers and multiple methods to achieve the final end state, which is a more secure environment. Whether it be protecting personal information or just data information as a whole, there is no one-size-fits-all silver bullet. That's why today's security professional needs to understand and be able to exercise at will many different modes and methods of securing today's environments. Most of today's attacks are not necessarily sophisticated in nature. Some might even call them elementary, mainly because of the increase in computing power. It makes, for instance, password breaking extremely easy. What used to take months or years with, for instance, an old Pentium 486 computer, now with today's modern laptops and 64-bit architectures, takes those months and years down to hours and minutes, coupled with software vulnerabilities present in almost all of our infrastructures. These are the most simple and common avenues of attack that can be easily fixed and secured by simply just patching your machine. Smartphones have become the new target because we have this device that a lot of people just don't understand are just as powerful as the computer sitting on their desktop. Except now it's always on, always accessible, and always being used from your pocket. Some examples of some modern attacks would be like bogus antivirus software. I think we've all seen these. You see the advertisements or flashes on your screen for free antivirus. It sounds like a good idea until you click on the link and then it takes over your machine. It looks like it might have installed something. However, I promise you it was not antivirus. Online banking attacks, just simply by performing what we call man-in-the-middle attacks, sniffing out your passwords and your usernames. Identity theft is probably one of the most prevalent today because if I can take over your identity, I can become you. And once I become you, I become trusted as you to all of your known associations. And then, of course, there's just simply carelessness. Finding a USB drive in a parking lot, for instance, and picking up and plugging it into your computer. Not a good idea anytime. Here's a list of some of the attacks that's happened over the years, all of them quite simplistic in nature, but you see the damage that one simple attack can do. For instance, at Tulane University, an employee carelessly leaves a laptop in his car and 10,000 student records are stolen. So what makes it so hard to defend against these attacks? We've heard the simple ways to mitigate against them over and over again. Why don't we just do it? Well, one of the leading reasons is just that the sophistication of what was old is new again has just become faster, again, with more computing power. We're also dealing with an always-on, always-connected world. It's not like you have to dial up to a modem anymore to get on the internet. You're just always there. And the availability of some of these tools used in these attacks are free and openly distributed across the internet. Hence why it doesn't take a sophisticated hacker to pull these off. It just simply takes a curious kid with enough time on their hands. Couple these issues with delays in patching. I mean, how many of us have seen that you have patches waiting down in your tray and you just wait a day or two or a month before actually installing those patches. And sometimes users are just simply confused or overwhelmed with everything that we tell them that they should do, and we almost paralyze them to do nothing. Next, let's talk about information security. Before defense is possible, you must understand exactly what information security is, why it's important, and who the attackers really are. So it's not as easy as just simply defining information security because it comes in parts. First, security. It's the steps to protect a person or property from harm, sacrificing convenience for safety. Information security is guarding digitally formatted information. The three basic tenets, or the triad as you'll hear it referred to, is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are the cornerstones of everything that we do in information security. Confidentiality means only approved individuals may have access to information. Integrity, information is correct and unaltered. And availability, information is accessible to authorized users. To provide the triad, or to provide the CIA, we add protections. These are implemented to secure that information. Authentication, authorization, and accounting. Authentication, an individual is who they claim to be. Authorization, you are granted the ability to access information based on once you provide your authentication or prove who you are. And then accounting, simply auditing, making sure that we audit our environments. That's all you really need to understand with accounting. When we layer these together, we call it defense in depth. So we have procedures and people and products all standing in the way to ultimately what we're trying to protect, the information. Whether it's a procedure on how to turn on and patch a machine, or how to join a machine to a network, or how we grant people access into facilities, and some of the protections that we have to make sure that it's only authorized people in those facilities. How we communicate with each other, and in what manner based on an individual's need to know. These all build on each other to do nothing more than protect ultimately the information. The defense in depth method works when all the pieces are put into place. This works on a theory that one or more can fail because there will be additional procedures behind it that should work. And if they're working, the information is in turn protected. So when dealing with information security technologies, you have to look at exactly what we're doing and how we're protecting it. Whether it's the asset itself, that's the item of value, the threat against that asset, or the threat agent, the person carrying out the actual threat against the asset. We can do these in a multitude of ways. Whether it be via policy, some sort of software system, a physical set of means like door locks and cable locks, or services, outsourcing, for instance, services to another organization to handle what you can't within your own organization natively. Next, we need to understand the definition of a vulnerability. Vulnerability and threat are not the same thing. A vulnerability is simply a flaw or a weakness. This is what the threat agent is looking to exploit. Then you have the risk. What is the likelihood that the threat agent will be able to employ that particular vulnerability, whether it be an operating system or an unlocked door? Understand that risk in no form and fashion can be eliminated entirely. It's just simply too costly and would take too long to implement. So there's always going to be some degree of risk. Our job as security professionals is to minimize the overall risk to the environment and the information. So let's take Tommy here. Tommy has a nice new car with nice, shiny, brand new rims that he worked all summer long to pay for. So he has the risk of his new rims being stolen. So the loss of those rims would be the overall threat that we need to figure out how to mitigate. The thief looking to steal the new rims would be the threat agent. Tommy does a good job of locking his car up every night and putting it behind the fence. However, there's a hole in the fence. This allows an avenue or a threat vector for the thief, the threat agent, to go in and exploit the ultimate threat of losing his hard-earned rims on his new car. Now, just simply put, that should be able to draw the picture for you of how all of these play together. Knowing that we cannot eliminate the risk altogether, when looking at different avenues to mitigate our risk, we have several different options. We can just accept the risk, realize that there is a chance of loss. We can try to diminish the risk, take some simple precautions and sometimes not so simple precautions to protect the asset, transfer the risk to someone else, for instance, getting insurance. You can call Nationwide or Geico or Allstate, or we can work in prevention. Next, let's talk through understanding the importance of information security. Ultimately, at its heart is to prevent the theft of the data that we are trying to protect. Security is often associated with theft prevention. That's usually where we see most money in organizations spent. Business data theft, like proprietary information that gives an organization a competitive edge, or individual data theft, like an individual's identity or credit card numbers. There are several different measures we can take to overcome the threat of identity theft. First, we need to understand what it is. Simply, identity theft is using another person's information in an unauthorized manner, usually for financial gain, like their social security number or credit card accounts or banking information. Next, there are several things that every security professional must be aware and understand when it comes to regulation and law, like HIPAA, which protects your health information, Sarbanes-Oxley, and Graham-Leach, which protects your financial information. These are examples of laws that were enacted to better help protect consumers and individuals from organizations that would otherwise probably not spend the money to protect your information as a whole. Next, let's talk about the expense, the true expense, the expense that you can see. Every attack has overt and covert expenses associated with it. For instance, it takes time after a successful attack or even after an unsuccessful attack to clean up the mess. That requires resources. We identify resources as one of three things: time, people, or money. So, for instance, if you have 100 employees, average hourly salary of $25, number of employees to combat that attack, and then how many hours is required to stop the attack and clean it up. Multiply those together, you get a total cost of $4,000. Total lost hours of productivity, 81, almost 2 weeks of an employee's time for one attack. Now, you can extrapolate from there to see how expensive it can get depending on how many attacks you are having to combat on a regular basis and how many people it takes to combat those attacks. Next, we'll talk about counterterrorism. Usually a premeditated, politically motivated attack. Usually the target is information or the computer system itself. It's designed to cause panic and provoke violence, usually resulting in some sort of financial catastrophe. Some of the potential targets is the banking industry, military, energy plants and power grids, and transportation systems. When we look at the types of individuals that carry out these attacks, they all have cryptic sounding names, but they're usually the person or persons sitting right next to you. We call them hackers or script kiddies, spies or insider threats, cybercriminals or cyber terrorists. We tried to label each one of them, but remember, it's hard to find because they work really under the cover of darkness in a world of nothing more than ones and zeros. So first, let's take a look at the hacker. The hacker is a person who uses computer skill to attack other computers. You have white hat hackers and black hat hackers. The white hat their goal is simply to expose a security flaw, but not to steal or corrupt any data. However, the black hat hacker main goal is for malicious and destructive intent. Next, we have script kiddies. Their primary goal is to break into computers to create some sort of damage. Most of them are fairly unskilled users. They're downloading scripts or downloading hacking software from the internet and then using them to exploit weak or vulnerable systems. Most of the attack software today is widely available, oftentimes free, and can cause a lot of damage. Almost 40% of the attacks performed are these types of attacks. Spies, computer spy, is a person hired to break into a computer, to steal information. They're hired to attack a specific computer or system containing specific targeted sensitive information. Their goal, their motivation is to steal information without drawing attention to their actions. They usually possess excellent computer skills. You would imagine they would have to be able to attack and then exit without being detected. Insiders, or the insider threat, are employees, contractors, or business partners. Almost half of the breaches are attributed to insider threats. For like a healthcare worker publicized celebrity healthcare records, or a government employee planted malicious coding script on the inside of a government network, or a stock trader concealing losses through fake transactions. These are all examples of insider threats. Cybercriminals are a network of attackers. They're identity thieves or spammers or financial fraudsters. Different from ordinary attackers, they are highly motivated and willing to take a little more risk. They're usually very well funded and more tenacious and boisterous in their attack and ultimate announcement of their success. Almost always motivated by simply financial gain. Cybercrime is simply targeted attacks using unauthorized access to information, mainly for the theft of personal information. Financial cybercrime is the trafficking in stolen credit cards and financial information using spam to commit the fraud. Most of these, again, are exercised by a very simplistic nature, but they're celebrated in the movies as sexy and fun. Next, we'll talk about cyber terrorists. These individuals have ideological motivation, attacking because of their principles and beliefs. The goals of a cyber terrorist is to usually deface electronic information to spread misinformation or propaganda, denying service to legitimate computer users, or to commit unauthorized intrusions, like causing mass infrastructure outages. So as you see, there is a wide variety of different types of attacks. However, they have the same basic steps used in each attack. How do we protect the computers against these attacks? There are 5 fundamental security principles to employ. First, let's understand the steps of an attack. It starts with probing. They're probing for specific information or trying to find the soft target, if you will. Then the actual penetration. They'll launch an attack against their identified soft target. Then the modification of security settings. This allows the attacker to continue to re-enter and compromise the system easily without detection. Then circulate to other systems. Same tools directed towards other systems using usually the same soft target it found in the first. And then finally to paralyze the network and or the devices. The basic anatomy of an attack, again, is very simplistic. It could take days, weeks, months, or years to find the initial soft target. However, once it is found, it can proliferate and paralyze your network in a matter of hours and minutes. The fundamental security principles of defense are layering, limiting, diversity, obscurity, and simplicity. Layering. Information security must be created in layers or defense in depth. Limiting. Limiting access to information. Only those who must use the data is granted access to that data. Diversity. Closely related to layering, but just a little bit different. If attackers penetrate one layer, there's an alternate technique that is designed to prevent them at the next layer. And the goal is breaching one security layer does not compromise the whole system. An example of diversity would be using different security products from different manufacturers that do the same thing, like multiple sources for antivirus. Obscurity. Obscuring inside details to the outsiders, not revealing too much, like the type of computer or operating system or the brand of software used. It's difficult for an attacker to devise an attack if these details are unknown. These are how they find the soft underbelly or the soft target. Simplicity. This is one that is often overlooked. The nature of information security is a complex subject. However, it does not need to be employed with complexity. The complexity of the security systems are what has tended to make our infrastructures weaker. The more complexity you add, the larger the possibility of failure. So, a complex security system is difficult to understand and troubleshoot. It's often compromised for the ease of use by the trusted users. We, for instance, tell our users to use long, complex passwords. Well, these long, complex passwords have eclipsed the ability of their mind to remember, so they write them down, inherently making the mechanism weaker. Security systems should be simple, for insiders to understand, at least. Simple from the inside and complex from the outside. It's a hard concept to understand, but once it's grasped, it makes the whole infrastructure a lot more secure. There you have it. Pretty simple, right? I told you it was. I know, it seems like a lot of information all at once, but remember, study hard. Lots of practice questions, and you will succeed. You will become a Security Plus certified professional. I'll see you next time.